Would you rewrite the First Amendment?
I have my opinions, but I don't even believe women should vote or be in government because we can't enforce any of those things anyway.
Welcome to the fake Christian side of the manosphere. I'm not a Christian, but I join you today with my cross necklace since anybody can be called a Christian nowadays. Also, it's a cute necklace, so. But yeah, welcome to the fake Christian side of the manosphere, where they believe things like 16-year-old minors are, quote, hotter than 26-year-olds. And they also believe that women, despite having to pay taxes and having the same IQ as men on average, should not vote. And that we are men's property, so we should be traded and sold off like cattle.
Women are currency to be bartered and traded. You know, we see in the Bible, it's not biblically unfounded. It's a lot like I'm making stuff up. You could trade a nice virgin bride for a half a dozen yoke of oxen. And I think if we went back to that and got rid of all this feminism crap, forget about your master's degree, forget about your career, and just go mommy mode. That's what I believe in.
So let me get this straight. We need to give up our right to vote so that we can be sold like cattle to some creep who needs to bleach his roots?
Step aside, Mercury! It's not you I'm after!
Go bleach your roots, creep!
Fine!
How are you going to buy women like cattle when you can't even afford to buy yourself some furniture? Yeah, let's become second-class citizen to some dork who has an infinity love sticker on his IKEA dresser. This is what people like Rachel Wilson are proposing when they say that women should become second-class citizens and give up their right to vote, and essentially giving up their right to freedom so that guys like that can buy us like cattle. It might catch you off guard to find out that sloppy Rachel here is in her 40s saying that women shouldn't vote, but it's actually not that surprising when you consider the fact that she pimped out her virginal daughter, that she bragged about having a 0 body count to a bunch of creepy men on the internet, on Twitter of all places. I covered some of this on my last video on Sloppy Seconds, 3 baby daddies Rachel Wilson, and her 12 cigarettes an hour husband, addict Andrew Wilson. But new details have come out about the situation that makes it even more creepy than we had initially thought, including the daughter herself speaking out on the situation. And I also want to speak on Reed Street Soap's Valentine's Day collection of candles that I helped design. The Chocolate Kiss candle is my favorite one. Not only is it beautiful with the pink and the chocolate, but it smells exactly like a chocolate kiss. I'm telling you guys, it smells so good that if I did not tell you it was a candle, you would 100% try eating it. You can get the Chocolate Kiss candle or any of the other Valentine's Day collection of candles on Reed Street Soap's website, which is reedsoap.shop. And if you place an order over $50, you will get this free birthday cupcake candle. And yes, it does smell like birthday cake, and it's in honor of my birthday. Happy Aquarius season. So don't forget to use code CUPCAKE when you check out. It's so good. So Sloppy pimped out her virginal daughter to a bunch of creepy men on Twitter. And it resulted in her getting engaged to a Nick Fuentes fan that later on blackmailed her and her family with what is implied to be her nudes and sex life, considering that she was a virgin.
I got a call from my daughter's ex-boyfriend, and he basically threatened me. He said, it's because Fuentes is my king. If you show up to that debate, I'm going to do horrible things to you, horrible things to your daughter. And I asked the guy, I said, well, what do you want? And he's like, you don't show up to that debate. And you shut your mouth about AF, period. But he's like, if you show up to this debate, if you show up, I'm going to ruin her entire life.
After doing some research, I found out that Sloppy posted her daughter's TikTok with her name in it on her Twitter. So I looked into it, and it turns out that her daughter spoke on this relationship on her TikTok a while back. So this is from Rachel's daughter's TikTok, and it says, me, when I remember, I really almost married a 27-year-old man from New York that I only met 3 times because my parents wanted me to. So now we know that Sloppy not only pimped out her daughter to a bunch of creepy cultist men on Twitter, but also this man was 27 years old, almost 10 years her senior, and it's captioned at the bottom, I was freshly 18. She didn't even have a chance to be an adult. I know that you can't see her face because I censored it, but let me tell you, she does not look happy about this. Her mother Sloppy and her stepdad, addict Andy, put her into this dangerous situation. I feel like he let this happen because it's his wife's daughter and not his biological daughter. And it gets worse. Sloppy's daughter claims that she was abused and assaulted for 2 years. After doing the math and looking at the dates, I don't believe it's the same Groyper because she says that she met the Groyper at 18 years old, and doing the math here, she would be around 15 or 16 years old when this other guy presumably abused and assaulted her for 2 years. So what this means is that Sloppy has a history of letting her daughter get treated horribly by the men she dates, and even set her up with one. And who's to say that she didn't set her up with this guy too, since, you know, she was ready to hook her up the moment she turned 18. It was probably happening before then too, if I had to take a guess. You not only let your daughter get abused and assaulted for 2 years, but then you put her back in another bad situation where she gets blackmailed and the guy threatens to ruin her life. So just to be clear, her fiance was a Groyper, part of the America First movement ran by Nick Fuentes. So this group would include guys like the one I showed earlier with the America First flags in his background. It's really not shocking that his fans like to talk about how women should be treated like animal stock, considering some of the predatory things that Nick has said.
When the Holy Spirit selected Mary, did the Holy Spirit go, let's look for a mature woman that I have something in common with? How old was the Virgin Mary? I think she was like, well, she wasn't 18, I'll say that much. You know what I expect? A fertile womb. A fertile womb and a sort of innocent, childlike spirit. All these people in the chat, dude, just stop. Shut up. I'm out here free thinking, okay? And if I've got weird sexual interests, and if I'm dropping these red pills on you, you're gonna shut up.
Nick also covered for a guy who was caught soliciting nudes from a minor, and Nick has also spoken on why he thinks it's actually okay to violate women against their will.
I think the age of consent should be lower. I don't even really believe in the concept. You wanna know why? Because marriage is consent. Being married means you consent to sex all the time. There's no such thing as marital rape.
It literally doesn't even make any sense why you would rape somebody in a way that doesn't even it's not even about your dick, right? I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? If you're just finger somebody, like, I don't know if you were just trying to be mean or just downright malicious. It's not like it's doing anything for you. And like I said, it's just so not a big deal.
Clearly, this is a projection on Nick's end because he clearly can't imagine what it is to be a straight man and derive pleasure from touching a woman. So he thinks, therefore, it's not violating a human right, even if it's against her will. But anyway, my point is that the daughter's ex-fiance is part of this group that Nick Fuentes runs. And after assumingly taking her virginity, which Sloppy loved to brag about before, he proceeded to blackmail her and her family with what is implied to be her nudes and sex life. So essentially, Sloppy put her own daughter in that situation with a man that was almost 10 years her senior. And this is right after her daughter was harmed by another guy when she was a minor under Sloppy's care. How I even found out this information was because of a Twitter user named Froggy pointing out this post that Rachel made with a video of her daughter baking a cake. Sloppy also publicly posted this daughter's name on Twitter, along with her other children on several occasions. So I just want to make it clear that the only reason that I know about this and am able to talk about this is because of Sloppy publicizing this information herself. It's really unfortunate that her daughter is a victim of her mother's own lack of maternal instinct and poor judgment, so please do not harass the daughter. The daughter has been through enough being engaged to a Groyper, so just leave her alone. And by the way, should they try to accuse me of doxing, I would like to remind you guys that Addict Andy tried to dox one of my friends and failed. He literally tried to put what he thought was private information out there of Tree. But I do think that this is very important to talk about because this cult has become very dangerous over the years. You know how I said earlier, Sloppy advocating for women to become second-class citizens, losing their right to vote would result in them being sold like cattle? Sloppy treated her daughter like cattle to a Groyper the moment that she turned 18, and what happened? Her daughter almost got her entire life ruined. But based mommy knows best. Really just incredible judgment, her as a traditional Christian conservative fraternizing with Ethan Ralph, a convicted sex offender. She goes on his show, compliments his work, kisses his ass, has a long history of doing so. This man that she is kissing the ass of pleaded no contest and was ruled guilty for distributing revenge porn of his baby mama. That's his thanks to her for her bearing him a child. Do these people do anything that's Christian or traditional? We know that certainly her cooking isn't. Speaking of which, she made Addict Andy his very own sloppy cake where she didn't bother finishing frosting the damn thing. She's out here bragging about being a trad wife, and yet in those 26 years of homemaking, you couldn't figure out how to make a cake look good? It literally looks like it's unfinished, like it's melting plastic on the cake. I can think of a cake that looked a lot better, just saying. You know, looking at these food photos, it reminds me of when I went on her daughter's TikTok and I saw that she had posted about having an eating disorder. It's sad that she had to go through that in such a hard time in her life. And it's a really serious issue because it implies that there's probably something going on in the household. You don't just randomly develop an ED. And I really hope that she's healed and recovered from that. But you know Sloppy's cooking must be bad if her daughter literally rather starve herself than to eat her food. Like, you can't blame her. You saw how many calories are in the meals that she makes in the last video. You know, how is her daughter supposed to have a healthy relationship with food when the smallest meal I've seen Sloppy make was like 1,000 calories? But anyway, I would like to talk more about their traditional Christian marriage. Sloppy and her husband Addict Andy lie about their marriage and how long they've been married, as we covered in the last video. They both said a bunch of different numbers for how long they were married, and it turns out that they were married for a lot less long than what they had said. This is going to get complicated with Sloppy and her 5 children from 3 different baby daddies. It's honestly messier than an episode of The Maury Show. So I'll give extra detail and receipts on the screen for anybody who wants to see the full proof of what I'm talking about. So based on what we know, in approximately 2002, Rachel got abandoned by baby daddy number 1. And that's where presumably her first 2 kids come from because they both share the same last name. And I know that from Rachel tweeting her kids' names. And they follow each other on social media, which you can find from Sloppy leaking the TikTok name of one of these daughters. The story gets more interesting when she marries her first husband, baby daddy number 2, who she has a child with that ends up passing away in a very tragic accident that in turn makes Sloppy look like an extremely irresponsible parent. There's a couple of news articles on this if you guys would like to read it for yourselves. So this baby daddy ends up divorcing her, and Sloppy actually claims that both of her first baby daddies abandoned her, which I don't know if I believe, but we do have this divorce document that shows that baby daddy number 2 did in fact divorce Sloppy. And pay attention to the date. The case was closed in October of 2011. Now for the most important part. Based on what I've worked out here, Addict Andy has 2 children with Sloppy. Doing some research, I found out which child was Addict Andy's first kid with Sloppy. And how I know this child is Addict Andy Wilson's child, or most likely is because she shares the same last name. What I believe happened here is that he had a child with Sloppy, left her, and married someone else, and then had a second child with Sloppy. And it's in a way that really makes it look like he cheated on his ex-wife with Sloppy while they were still married. And that would explain why Addict Andy was so forceful about making Sloppy have her child take the paternity test.
I have what I would consider 100% faith and trust in my wife. Mm-hmm. But I told her, I told her these words exactly. You're going to get the fucking test, and if not, I'm out the door, period.
So based on this information and how close the timelines are, it would seem like he left his ex-wife to marry Sloppy. So basically, to sum this up and simplify it, Addict Andy and Sloppy had a child, and then a little bit time later, Addict Andy married a different woman. We know that the legal marriage between Addict Andy and Sloppy has not happened yet because we know that Sloppy tweeted that they got married in December of 2012. This first child between Sloppy and Addict Andy was born around 2009 and shares the same last name as Addict Andy Wilson. And Addict Andy even goes as far as to say that the ceremony happened way before the legalities did. So 2012 December would be about the earliest that they could have legally been married, especially based on the tweets. So then after they had this first child out of wedlock, sometime later, Addict Andy gets married to a different woman that is not Sloppy. And according to Addict Andy's marriage application with said other woman that was applied for in 2010, it was only 1 year later after this marriage certificate application that Sloppy and Addict Andy conceived their next child. who she also mentioned the name of on Twitter and mentioned the exact birthday, so you can do the math and go back 9 or 10 months and figure out when she was conceived. And this child is born in February of 2012, and then some months later, in December of 2012, Addict Andy and his sloppy wife get married. So that's why they keep fudging the numbers. It's because it helps hide what happened, and it was very messy, which Sloppy denies, but the dates are adding up.
No, see, this person says, Tree says you got knocked up by your current husband while he was married. He divorced his wife to marry you. No. This is what I'm saying. They're just inventing crazy shit. Andrew was not married. No, he was not married when we met at all. He hadn't been married. He wasn't married when we met. He didn't knock me up. That's all lies. I don't know where they got.
Doesn't seem like lies to me. The dates aren't lying. Versus Sloppy, who has lied about how long she was married, among other things. So let's go through one by one all of these things that Sloppy claims are lies. We're going to do all the ones that are relevant to this video. Andrew was married to someone else and got me pregnant on the side. Well, we saw with the dates for the marriage certificate application that that's not true. And that baby S. Wilson has Addict Andy's last name most likely has it because he is the father. That is a fair assumption to make, especially when her other kids don't share his last name, which we know based on her sharing their names and her sharing her daughter's TikTok. Next we have We Are Being Blackmailed. There is literally a videotape of your husband saying that you guys were.
I got a call from my daughter's ex-boyfriend. And he basically threatened me, right? He said that he was going to do horrible things. If you show up to that debate, I'm going to do horrible things to you, horrible things to your daughter.
By the groiper that you set her up with, when she was freshly 18 and he was almost 10 years her senior, that she says you pushed her to do. So, wrong. That's a lie. Andrew forced me to agree to paternity testing. We saw the clip only 100 times.
I told her these words exactly. You're going to get the fucking test, and if not, I'm out the door.
If saying that you're going to, quote, fucking take that test or I'm leaving isn't essentially forcing someone, then I don't know what is. Like, how else would you force someone to take a paternity test? I was promiscuous. If that weren't true, I wouldn't have had to spend the last 10 minutes explaining her messy past. I had to draw several timelines just to keep track of your messy past and incorporate math just to figure out how many marriages, baby daddies, and situations you were in. This is so messy, I don't even think Maury could follow it. I had to sit here and write out a timeline just to explain it to you guys. And I'm pretty sure that's why they're hiding it, because they know it's not traditional or conservative, so they opt to lie about it instead and inflate the number of years they've been married to cover it up. So yeah, this has been a pretty deep rabbit hole into the fake Christian manosphere, and I know that Addict Andy and his sloppy wife are going to say that they're not part of the manosphere, but that's BS. Addict Andy's friends are pretty much all in the manosphere. He makes the type of content that appeals to the manosphere audience. They make the same arguments, they have the same talking points, like how women shouldn't vote. Literally refers to himself as an MRA. He puts the most provocative photos that he can find permitted by YouTube of OF girls, just like the Manosphere podcast, like Fresh and Fit do. They do a lot of collaborative content with the Manosphere. Sloppy is besties with Pearl, plus they rub arms with Grandma Tomasi. Sloppy was all over him during the Lauren Southern thing where we made up the fake rumors and sent a troll email, and then Grandma Tomasi believed it. Sloppy was backing him up on that and actually believed it, by the way. So, great judgment. Thank you guys for watching the video, and shout out to Froggy on Twitter for posting so much evidence that helped in my research, and shout out to Tree from Just Tree 411 for posting so many receipts and creating so much entertainment for this entire rabbit hole to even happen in the first place. And a big thank you to my producers on Patreon. If you would like to become a patron and support my content, if you like my work, you can do so on patreon.com/BrittanyVenti or on my website BrittanyVenti.com if you want to leave a one-time message and donation. Or of course you can buy a candle from Reed Street Soap. Hey Spooky. Thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna go for Spooky knocks my camera over, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.